the Hollywood crime scene. This is Rachel Fisher.
Hi, I'm Desi Jedeikin.
And I don't have any celebrity news this week other than our president's an asshole. But that's really it. We're not a political show, so.
And that's not really news because it's constant.
I just want to give a quick shout out before we get started to our Patreon contributors. I'm not going to read all of them because we're up to 24 contributors now.
Wow.
Exciting. But I'm just going to give a shout out to a handful of them, and I'm going to organize them next week so I can decide who's on the rotation. But let's give a shout out to Ron Jeremy. I wonder if that's the real Ron Jeremy. He donated a lot, so
obviously
really happy about that. Alan, John, Mr. Brain Freeze, Frank, Patrick. Let's give a shout out to our friend Chris Tognati who pledged $5. So he has access to our weekly bonus episodes.
Of course, it's worth it.
Yeah. Someone named HR Cafe, Bob, Jewel, Matthew, Jeff. Okay, I'm gonna stop there for now. I think I read the other ones last week.
Okay.
So, but I'll read them again next week. But thank you guys so much for contributing to our show. If you would like to be a Patreon contributor, you will get access to our bonus episodes, which are super dirty and erotic. And I think you'll really like them. They're highly erotic. You can jerk off to them in your spare time. For $5, you can get that. For $1, we'll give you a shout out on the show, and you'll have access to patron-only polls, which we'll be doing our first poll as soon as we hit $500. So tell your friends to donate to our show. This costs money to put on, and we really appreciate the people who have donated. And as always, our show will be free. We want your listenership more than your money. But we want your money, but we appreciate our listeners regardless. Sorry, I just had to get all that out there right now.
Oh, that's fine.
And thank you also to the nice reviewers. I read all of our reviews.
Oh, yeah, the reviews are really sweet.
Yeah.
I like them.
Yeah, we got some really nice ones this past week.
I saw those.
Yeah. So if you leave us a review on iTunes, you don't even have to write a review. You can just make it anonymous, leave 5 stars. If you leave 5 stars, it really helps us.
Right. But tell me on Twitter if you leave a review so I can see it and I can be like, oh, hey.
Yeah. It's like
I'm sure that's a thrill.
Right. Oh, hi. Thanks.
Hi, thank
Kissy
you.
Face.
Yes. Actually, I think I did make an offer that I would retweet your favorite tweet if you show me your review. I don't know if that's a good incentive.
Right. I'll retweet your favorite tweet if you show me a review this week.
Cool.
Okay.
Okay, well, so this week we are going to talk about one of the great love stories of our time, Sid and Nancy. All Rachel, right. Did you see the movie Sid and Nancy?
Okay, don't hate me.
Are you like...
I'm one of those people that you'd think I would have seen the movie 12 times.
Right.
But no, I haven't, even though I'm a huge Gary Oldman fan. He's my favorite actor.
Right.
And I've actually met Chloe Webb before. She's, like, so sweet and so nice.
Yeah.
But I haven't seen the movie.
Okay. Well, I was like a little, punk wannabe when I was in high school. So obviously I had to run out and see that movie. Even though I was not particularly a Sex Pistols fan, it's sort of like you have to... see that movie at some point, right?
It's iconic.
Yeah, it's a good movie, and I do recommend it. So this is sort of, there isn't much conflict between the reality and the movie, but it is a good movie, and it's dark as hell.
Right.
So I did see the movie a while ago. I haven't revisited it yet. So anyways, I'm going to get into the story, and we'll start with kind of the backstories. We'll start with Sid. So he was born May 10th, 1957, and you might be surprised to find out that his real name is not Sid Vicious.
Aww.
He was actually born John Simon Ritchie.
Did he change it at Ellis Island?
Yes, he did. He was born to John and Anne Ritchie. She eventually becomes Anne Beverly. And I thought this is an interesting tidbit. His dad was a semi-professional trombone player on the London jazz scene.
Wow.
Never quite heard that credit before. So when he was about 17, that's sort of where he started going into London and hitting on this London punk scene, which was sort of thriving at that time in the early 70s. He started hanging around, which is something I didn't know, with Malcolm McLaren and Vivienne Westwood had a clothing store called Sex at the time, and it was like sort of this hotbed hangout for punks, for young punks. Another interesting thing that I had never heard before was around this time he met Chrissie Hynde, who was, I think he was 17 and she was 22, and she was in London. This is before she started the Pretenders. And she tried to get him to marry her so she could get a work permit, but they never, it never went through. Yeah, I know. It was like,
he was only 17.
Yeah.
Too.
So it's around this time in 1973 that he met Johnny Lydon, or John Lydon. And Lydon describes meeting Richie at the time, he hadn't changed his name yet, as sort of like a David Bowie fan and like a clothes hound. He was very into his like image, and this is like a recurring theme with him sort of as we go through the story. Like he had like this cool fucking image, right?
Right.
And it was actually John Lydon who gave him the nickname Sid Vicious. And this story sounds so corny, it can't be true, but maybe it is, I have no idea. Apparently Lydon had a pet hamster at the time named Sid, and it bit Richie, and then Richie responded, "Sid is really vicious."
Oh, come on. That sounds fake.
Sounds too, like, dead on, right? Like,
well, it also sounds like the Kids Bop version of
right,
what
like,
happened.
Hey, like,
this is a vicious, mean old
like,
hamster.
my peanut butter fell into your chocolate, or whatever. So that's supposedly the story. They were squatting together at the time. Of course, they're squatting, right?
And Johnny Lydon you're talking about, of course, is Johnny Rotten.
Right, but not at the moment.
Not yet.
So they also kind of started their musical career together at this time by busking for money, and Sid played tambourine, like kind of like a punk rock Tracy Partridge or something. So at this time, Richie, or Sid Vicious now, he started trying to become a musician. He had no real musical talent, but he had the look, like we mentioned before. He actually, one of his first big gigs was with Susie and the Banshees at something called 100 Club Punk Festival, which was like a big punk thing at the time. At this time, he was also up to be the lead singer of The Damned, along with Dave Vinayan. I don't know if that's the correct way to say it. But he actually didn't show up for the audition. And then, of course, when he didn't get the gig, he blamed Dave for sabotaging him somehow.
Wow.
This is also where he started really becoming like the angry fucking hothead, asshole, right, whatever you want to call it. So at day 2 of this punk festival that I mentioned before, the 100 Club Punk Special festival or whatever, he went to see the Damned perform, and obviously he was fucking pissed, right? So he showed up drunk and on amphetamines, and at some point during the performance, he threw a glass at the stage, but the glass that he was trying to throw at the singer that got the job over him, he actually missed him, and it shattered on a pillar and partially blinded a girl who was at the show.
Wow.
This tidbit I thought was funny, not the blinding, but he was arrested for that, and he went to jail. And Vivienne Westwood sent him a book about Charles Manson in jail to keep him entertained while he was there.
That's a very Desi move.
I know. I was like, oh my God, Vivienne. Like, I knew I loved her, but like,
right,
now it's like official.
Right.
So anyways, in 1975, the Sex Pistols were formed by Malcolm McLaren, who owned the shop. And he was kind of like a visual artist and, I don't know, a gadfly.
Right.
He owned the boutique. And then he's managing this band and he had this like flair for sort of promotion. So the band kind of made their mark by creating these controversies that got them a lot of publicity. An interesting thing was that how Johnny Lydon or Johnny Rotten got the gig was Vivienne Westwood told Malcolm that you should get the guy that's called John who comes into the store to be the singer. And he accidentally got Johnny Rotten, or Johnny Lydon at the time, instead of John Ritchie,
right,
who was Sid Vicious. So it was like a weird twist that he was actually he could have been the lead singer of that band, which would have been actually a better role for him. And then Malcolm McLaren has said before numerous times that if he had met Vicious first, he would have been the singer. And he thinks he had like a charisma that would have made him like a great
right,
frontman. And Malcolm McLaren also said, if Johnny Rotten is the voice of punk, then Vicious is the attitude. Another person, Alan Jones, who's kind of like an expert on punk and friends with Vicious, said that he had the iconic punk look. Sid on Image Alone was what punk rests on. So he just had this vibe about him that was really cool.
No, there's this whole, I mean, Sex Pistols are really, I would consider, like, the iconic punk band, just in that they were in the early days of punk in the 70s. When people think of punk rock, they think of the Sex Pistols. Like I said, they're very iconic.
Right.
But also, there is, I think, like, true punk purists see the Sex Pistols as, well, they weren't even musicians. They were just formed, sort of like Josie and the Pussycats.
Right.
They were, like, very much based on the image of punk rock as opposed to
I think that's
music first.
I think that's, like, a little bit unfair. Like, I think they were put together. But I feel like because Vicious became such the standout, and he actually did not play an instrument, he kind of gave that image to them. But it's not exactly true. Like, the other people were musicians and played instruments and whatnot. Another interesting thing, at the time, Sid was, like, the Sex Pistols' #1 fan. Like, so he wasn't in the band initially. He's not an original member or whatever. But he was their #1 fan, and he is very close friends with Johnny Rotten. Right. He also, like, another interesting fact is that, I just have so many fun facts. He invented the pogo, the dance.
Really?
That's, like, that's sort of like this legendary thing that he invented, that jumping and kind of thrashing.
For our younger guests, the pogo is a move that was popular in the early punk days and early post-punk days.
It's pretty self-explanatory.
You literally are just jumping up on 2
like
feet.
Yeah.
You still see it at ska shows.
Right. So in February of 1977, the bassist for the band, Glen Matlock, left the Sex Pistols, and I don't know exactly why, but the reason I liked the best that I heard was that he got kicked out because he admitted to liking the Beatles.
Oh,
so,
wow.
Yeah. I'm going to just go with that. It might not be true, but it's pretty fucking hilarious. Funny. There was something also where they were like, he wouldn't shut the fuck up about Paul McCartney.
Well, that might just be irritating.
Yeah, it's very, and that's when Sid was asked to join the band. Basically, he didn't know how to play the bass, literally, like, at all.
But they're like, this guy is
and
the
he's
perfect
friends
look.
with Johnny Rotten and whatever. In fact, he is really only playing bass on half of a song on the Nevermind the Bollocks, Here's the Sex Pistols albums. Like, he's not on any of the songs. The guitar player actually had to double up and play bass on most of the numbers. He also wasn't really involved in the album making because he had hepatitis at the time and was hospitalized for most of the recording of the album. This is kind of where Nancy Spungen comes in. She was visiting him every day at the hospital, and she's, I don't want to say she's like the Sex Pistols Yoko Ono. Maybe, I don't know.
Wow.
I'm not going to go that far, but that's kind of where... That was sort of around the time they met, and she became his devoted girlfriend. So now I'm going to get a little bit into Nancy, who was born Thursday, February 27th, 1958 in Philly.
Holla!
She actually was born... She had complications at birth, where she was being strangled or choked by her umbilical cord during the delivery, so she kind of had oxygen deprivation. And this is like a, looking back, this might be a little funny. Apparently, she appeared to suffer no brain damage at the time. So the Spongens were like actually a middle-class Jewish family. So she grew up in like a very normal kind of situation. But apparently she was like difficult from the beginning, a very difficult baby.
I wonder if she was my mom's neighbor. They grew up in
right?
Philly around the same time in a Jewish neighborhood.
She was throwing fits and had temper tantrums. At 3 months old, she was described barbiturates, which I can't even believe because she had such violent behavior even as a newborn. Yeah. And then her mom, there's a quote of her mom's where it says, "I know it's normal for babies to scream, but Nancy did nothing but scream." So I love this like kind of iconic like punk rock woman started off fucking screaming her head off. Right. She was really smart. She scored really high on like intelligence test. But she was really violent and started sort of beating the shit out of her younger sister at some point, but was always really nice to her brother. I don't know. She threatened to kill her babysitter with scissors.
Ouch.
She attempted to beat the shit out of her psychiatrist, who accused her of acting out for attention, and then I guess she fucking proved it. And then, much like me, she was expelled from school for truancy.
Oh my God.
Yeah. She got sent to a fancy private school after that. She ran away from that. She attempted suicide by slitting her wrists with scissors. And then when she was 15, she was actually diagnosed with schizophrenia. So pretty crazy childhood. Then she went to the University of Colorado at Boulder. She got expelled from there too, and she actually got arrested for buying pot and having stolen property. So she was just like fucking bad. She was actually banished from the state of Colorado, which I didn't even know was fucking possible.
Right?
As part of her plea bargain that her father kind of worked out for her. It was at this point that she moved to New York City. I think she was like 17, right? Where she began her work as a stripper and a prostitute.
Okay.
And that's what she proudly called herself. She also became kind of a groupie. She was fucking around with every band in town, like Aerosmith, Bad Company, New York Dolls, Ramones, you name it. She kind of lived her life devoted to pissing people off. She got the reputation for just being verbally abusive and violent, and people started calling her nauseating Nancy, I was actually impressed because I was like, I think that's the proper use of the word, like not nauseous, but nauseating. Yes,
right.
So I mean, they were punk, but they had
proper
yeah, they were grammar Nazis.
vocabulary.
There's a guy, Legs McNeil, and he's like one of the founders of Punk magazine, which is like the seminal punk rock magazine at the time. And he actually said that she wasn't any more fucked up than anyone else. And then his quote to like make that seem okay was, Joey Ramone pulled a knife on his mother one time. We were all disturbed. Sounds like...
Who are we to judge?
Yeah, right.
There before the grace of God go I.
So she's kind of like a Pamela DeBar, like a total fucking groupie on the scene. The one thing I thought was kind of cool, though, was someone described her as like, she wasn't trying to be cute or charming. She didn't tell people she was a model or a dancer. She walked around with like mousy brown hair, a little bit overweight, and she's like, yeah, I'm a prostitute and I don't care. So it's like, you gotta kind of love that. So in 1976, she moved to London because basically people got fucking tired of her shit in New York, and she had to go to London, the London punk scene, and ruin everything there. So I think she tried to hook up with Johnny Rotten initially, and then that's when she met Sid Vicious, and they moved in together shortly after meeting, and he actually lost his virginity to her.
No way.
I know, isn't that shocking?
Who does meth before they fuck?
I honestly was shocked by that. I don't know.
How old was he?
I mean, he must have been 19 or something, yeah. I mean, I guess it's possible, but it seems so crazy to me that he wouldn't have fucked by now. I mean, I don't know.
And
maybe he was so fucked up he couldn't, like, fuck. I don't know how it works.
That's just wild.
So, anyways, now they're together. I told you about the hepatitis, blah, 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 blah. In January, so that was 1977 when they met. In January of 1978, this is when the Sex Pistols went on their big U.S. tour. This is where everything fucking fell apart. The tour lasted maybe 1 to 2 weeks.
Wow. Before
the band broke up. It was a hot fucking mess of a tour, and like everyone fucking hated each other. So some of the things, there was like a multitude of problems that weren't all caused by Sid Vicious, but his heroin habit was really bad at this time, and he was just like a fucking monster. He didn't play an instrument, so he'd basically be on stage just fucking causing problems.
Doing the pogo, causing drama.
Right. So some of the things that he did on this tour, and I'm going to tell you, there's some language that's very problematic, but I'm just going to fucking say it because this is a punk rock episode and we don't apologize for this stuff. It's the facts, people. He hit an audience member on the head with his bass because the audience member had antagonized him by shouting out faggot fucker for hitting him, which I feel like is kind of...
That's very...
Like, I don't know what to think about.
You should just call him a faggot.
Yeah, like, I don't know what the addition of fucker is why I was amused by it. Like, a faggot fucker. Like, it's almost like you're not even gay, but you fuck gay people, right?
Right.
So I don't know what it was. Then in another thing, on another show, he carved the words, "Give me a fix" into his chest with
Give me a fix?
Give me a fix. Gimme too, like
Gimme.
Gimme. Give me a fix. He received simulated oral sex on stage and declared, "That's the kind of girl I like." It's like, that's when he lost his virginity, and then he was just like, "Hey, suck it." He also spat blood at a woman, who then climbed on stage and punched him in the face. When I'm like, who is this fucking hero?
That's hot.
Like, yeah, it was really hot. So anyways, the tour ended basically after 1 to 2 weeks. So all of these things happened in like such a short period. It's quite amazing. But the band was over. So after just 2.5 years, they had one album and 4 singles. But they, like you said, they made their mark on popular music. They kind of initiated this punk movement and kind of became whatever, like the iconic punk band. Yeah. So it's always kind of surprising when you look back and you're like, oh, they had one album. They're like, weren't even together that long and whatever. So anyways, after the band ended, Nancy became his manager, of course, right? She's his trap queen, like his manager, his like got him his
That's
drugs
always
and like
a good
kept
idea.
him. I mean, if you see the movie, there's really funny scenes where she's like borderline keeping things together. Like, come on, you gotta get to your gigs, but then at the same time, you're not getting heroin until you do this. And like he would do all the heroin, and like she'd be mad at him. She's like, you need to get to your gig, but then she'd also be like, and also fuck you for doing all the heroin.
Right.
Like, so they're like a mess.
Because she was a drug addict too.
Of course, yeah. And people even say that she's the one who got him hooked on heroin, but I don't know if that's, it's always like blame the woman, right? Right. So he was performing mostly in New York City at Max's Kansas City, the iconic club. And that's when they moved into the Chelsea Hotel in New York City, which I remember going to when I was like in high school, like going to see it was like a big, I was like, that's it. And it's kind of like nothing when you're going there to see it. You're like, oh, okay. And that's where they were in room 100, and they were registered as Mr. and Mrs. John Simon Ritchie, his real name. And they basically lived there and just fucking spiraled into like drugs and despair and beating the shit out of each other. I mean, it was,
they were physically abusive to each other, right?
So that on the morning of October 12th, 1978, at 11 o'clock in the morning, the clerk from the front desk actually received a call from outside the hotel from a man saying there's trouble in room 100. The clerk sent a bellman up there, and he got another call from room 100 of someone saying, someone is sick, I need help. So when the bellman got up to room 100 and came inside, he saw Nancy sort of soaked in blood, just wearing black bras and panties, face up on the floor, her head under the sink with a single knife wound in her lower abdomen. There was blood, like a blood trail in the bathroom, and there was a blood-stained empty bed. The bellman ran downstairs, they called the ambulance, the paramedics came up, Nancy was dead. Did I say it was Nancy? Yes, it was Nancy. And then there was a knife sitting there and drugs and drug paraphernalia lying around. And Sid was apparently wandering the halls, crying and fucking fucked up, is how someone reported hearing him say, I killed her, I can't live without her. She must have fallen on the knife, like this kind of stuff. He was crying and just fucking distraught. He actually had said numerous things about what happened, but he was a drug addict, so
who's to say?
Who's to say? He claims that he woke up to find her. It was his knife that was used, and he actually had bought the knife several days before. It was called a 007 flip knife, and it was the same one given to Stiv Bators of the Dead Boys by Dee Dee Ramone, and he liked it so much that he went out and bought the knife. So that was the knife that was used.
Can I just say that the whole excuse of someone falling on the knife, that seems to be a really popular.
It's like falling on the dick when you cheat. Like, oh,
my dick fell on it. Like,
it was an accident.
How many people have actually fallen on a knife?
Well, I mean,
I guess if you really
in this situation, I can see how it might not fall on the knife, but like.
But I feel like there would be more. I mean, it just seems like one single stab wound.
Right.
I don't know.
So a few of the stories he gave, I mean, there was the initial one where he just said, I killed her, and she fell on the knife. He also said that they were fighting he stabbed her, but he never meant to kill her. And then he, also would say, I don't really remember. But yeah, and then he did say during the argument, she fell on the knife. And then there was also a rumor that he confessed to the murder, like openly, and said, I did it because I'm a dog, a dirty dog. Another interesting thing I heard, like after the fact when they're getting witness statements, someone said that they did hear that night, sometime in the middle of the night, a faint cry, ah! But they didn't do anything because it was the Chelsea Hotel and that shit was happening all the time. Kind of like the Wonderland house, right? Yeah. So he was arrested and charged with murder, basically, because,
come on.
Yeah.
Do the math.
So after the murder, I guess he was out on bail or something, but he was about town, like going to Max's Kansas City and just fucking a wreck on like more heroin than ever. He was kind of like even bigger celebrity after this happened. Like people, he's on the news every day and da-da-da-da. He's in Max's Kansas City. People are buying him drinks and giving him more drugs than ever. He's just walking around all fucking puffy-faced and looking like disgusting, fucking junkie. No offense, junkies. So 10 days after this, he attempted to commit suicide by slitting his wrist with a smashed light bulb.
I wonder if he was smoking out of the light bulb.
Right. Yeah, because I've heard of that. Right.
Yeah, you can smoke crack.
Right.
You can smoke all kinds of stuff out of the light bulb. And I just wonder if that's what I picture in my head.
Right, because he had it out.
And he's like, I'm a fucking loser.
Yeah. So he actually he was hospitalized at Bellevue, and he tried to kill himself again by jumping out the window and apparently shouting, I want to be with my Nancy. I like how I just...
My Nancy. My nauseous Nancy. Or nauseated. Excuse me.
I miss being nauseated. And then he was like doing interviews because he's kind of like this bigger celebrity now because of what happened.
So he was out on bail.
Right. He said he would do an interview, and in the interview he said it never was supposed to happen, but Nancy always said she'd die before she was 21. It's also over the top punk, like everything. And I guess at some point the interviewer asked him if he was having fun, and he said, are you kidding? I want to be under the ground. I feel like this was me when I was 16.
Right.
So anyways, while he's out, he's out of the hospital now. He gets charged with assault. He attacked Todd Smith, who is the brother of singer Patti Smith, at a Scottish concert at Hurrah, which was a New York City dance club at the time. So he's arrested again on December 9th, 1978 for this assault and sent to Rikers Island for 55 days. And that's where he kind of starts undergoing like an enforced detoxification.
Wow.
So his mom's back in the picture now, Anne Beverly, who is also a junkie, by the way.
Of course.
And this is an amazing detail that actually made me scream with delight when I read it. She visited him in Rikers and would smuggle heroin in her vagina to him.
Oh my God.
Which is like...
That is just like such junkiedom where... Like, you really have to be, like, that is the most drug addict thing I've ever heard. Where you smoke, look, smoking heroin that came from someone's vagina is already pretty hardcore, but when it's your mother's vagina...
I've heard of mothers lifting cars off their children, like, getting the strength to do these things. But, like, I feel like I saw that in some show one time and screamed, like, the night of, or some like show, I can't remember what, where a mom did that, and I was just like, what the actual... Oh, she was like smuggling it in for her son to sell, but he had to get it out of his mom's pussy or something. Oh man,
that's dedication.
Yeah, it's dedication. So he at some point he gets out of Rikers, he gets released on bail again. The bail was $50,000, and Richard Branson of Virgin Records actually ponied up the money, but then Johnny Lydon, but he has like a reputation of being contrary. He says that Mick Jagger actually did it, but he never took the publicity for it.
Oh,
so who knows what happened. Anyways, he's out on bail, and that was February 1st, 1979. That night, Sid's new girlfriend, by the way, 4 months later.
Wait a minute. If I was Nancy, I'd be spinning in my grave, being like, you motherfucker, you killed me.
It's amazing how fast they got over it.
You're supposed to be under the ground, dead right now with me.
Mm-hmm.
And you're fucking some other chick right now.
Right.
I'm so pissed.
So he gets out on bail, and his new girlfriend named Michelle Robinson, and she was an aspiring actress.
Ugh, I already hate her.
Yeah. They had a dinner at her party, a dinner at her apartment with Jerry Only of the Misfits and future D-Generation founding member Howie Pyro, who I knew in New York and had no idea that he was so deep involved in this
That's
mess.
hot.
Yeah. So they're at this party celebrating his release. He had been on a detoxification methadone program during Rikers Island, I guess, except for the pussy heroin,
Right.
which maybe was just too hard to get a ton of. So he was basically sort of detoxed. I don't know exactly how it works. This detail cracked me up for some reason. After eating spaghetti bolognese, which made me like fucking hungry, he asked his mom to get him some more heroin. And of course she got him some, but it wasn't strong enough for him. So somebody else went out to get him heroin, which was supposedly 95% pure. And he shot that up and collapsed because he was so weakened.
Yeah.
Like he didn't have the tolerance, obviously,
Right.
after being in jail. His mom and girlfriend sort of revived him after he, got fucked up. So they didn't call an ambulance. They kind of just took care of it himself. They put him into the bed where he shot up again.
After they revived him.
And then his mom found him the next morning dead of an overdose.
Wow.
Apparently, his body, which I've never heard of such a thing, his body was not taken in by any of the funeral homes in New York. They didn't want to take him because of the hubbub and the reputation. Like maybe they just thought there'd be too much.
They don't want to be the funeral home that took care of Sid Vicious.
So he got cremated, and I guess he had said he wanted to be buried next to Nancy, but she was buried in a Jewish cemetery, and her mom was like, fuck no, like, or I don't even know, I guess you can't be buried, but I think the mom was also like, fuck no, like, so the mom, Jerry Only, and Howie Pyro took his ashes to Philadelphia and scattered them on top of her grave.
I wonder if the new girlfriend was like,
I know, right? Then Howie Pyro, he goes on to say, there was a documentary that came out in 2009. He said that he thinks Spungen killed herself, and his quote is, "To me, she just did it to herself because that's what people like her do, like teenagers who cut themselves."
That's a pretty big cut.
Yeah, but I could see, like, I mean, that's what Elliot Smith did, right?
Elliot Smith stabbed himself in the heart.
Right.
Yeah.
So he said that he thought Nancy was so desperate for attention, she stabbed herself thinking that Sid would come to her rescue, but he was too fucked up to find her in time,
And
so she
died.
basically bled out.
Right.
Anyways, after he died, the NYPD closed the case. Now, this is not the only alternate theory to Sid Vicious murdering her, right? Which I don't actually think happened, personally.
You don't think that he murdered her?
I'm not that certain that he intentionally, I don't know.
I
He
can
might
imagine-
have, like, but I don't think it was like, I'm murdering you. Like,
I can imagine them being in a brawl.
Yeah.
And him stabbing her to, like, they're in the middle of a brawl and they're so fucked up and they're
Right.
drunk or whatever,
Right.
high, and
Right.
he stabs her like, fuck you, bitch, and then he runs down the hall.
I mean, the bottom line is no one really knows.
Right.
Because he's too fucked up to give a testimony
And
about what
he's
happened.
dead.
Yeah, well, that too. So the other theories are basically, there were 2 drug dealers who visited them that night. So they're thinking that it was possible the drug dealers came in and robbed them, and instead of just like letting it happen, Nancy, like Sid is passed out and
Right.
Nancy fought back and got stabbed. One of the people was a guy called Rocket's Red Glare. And he, I guess at some
like
point...
by the Rocket's Red Glare?
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
He's also an actor and a stand-up comic, by the way. So that he delivered 40 capsules of hydromorphone. Morphone? I don't know what that is. Sounds morphine-y. To the couple sometime that night. He always denied that he did anything. But he also said there was another drug dealer named Michael, in quotes, that was there that evening too, who was bringing heroin, and that he thinks that Michael came back, found Sid passed out, and attempted to steal the remaining drugs that they had. And then he had a confrontation with Nancy and stabbed her. I mean, the other things that kind of lead me to think that maybe Sid didn't do it, he apparently had taken 30 Tuniol tablets that night, and that supposedly will get even the biggest junkie knocked out for hours. Police also found 6 different sets of fingerprints in the room, but they never looked beyond Sid Vicious. Like, he was their main suspect right away, so nothing ever happened. The other claim that's made is by Sid's mom, Ann Beverly, the junkie, the pussy heroin junkie. And she said that they had made a suicide pact. She said that after she cremated him, she found in the pocket of his leather jacket a note that said, "We had a death pact and I have to keep my half of the bargain. Please bury me next to my baby. Bury me in my leather jacket, jeans, and motorcycle boots. Goodbye."
I want to look cute.
Yeah. Please put on Joy Division when I commit suicide. And then this is also in the movie, they kind of take this theory too. They say they were in an argument about the suicide pact, and that Sid reneged on the pact, and that the argument escalated, and then Nancy started punching him, and when he was trying to leave the apartment, that's when she accidentally got stabbed because she charged him when his knife was out.
Right.
By the way, Ann Beverly committed suicide in 1996.
Oh, so quite a bit after.
Yeah. It's just a tragic family.
Really?
So, according to Legs McNeil, the guy I mentioned earlier, the Punk magazine guy, he's quoted as saying, it was when this happened, when Nancy died, and then Sid died OD'd or suicide, whatever. It was like the Manson family in the 60s. It killed punk overnight. We were doing the Punk magazine awards. Lou Reed was there. Everyone was there. The camera crews were there, and all anyone wanted to talk about was Sid and Nancy. And then he said it was disgusting, but I feel like it was a pretty big story. Yeah. It makes sense. And then, according to Johnny Rotten, he at some point said, "I'm sorry, God, for the day I brought Sid into the band. The best aspect of his character, which was his humor, just vanished the day he joined the Pistols. Poor Sid, once you start on that heroin trail of self-pity, it's gone." And I did hear that about Sid Vicious, like in some of the other things I read and some of the things I listened to, that he did, like, before he became a junkie, was like a really fucking funny, fun person. And then he just, I mean, that makes sense to me, like the idea of self-pity, making you lose all your humor, because even without taking drugs, I feel like that's pretty common with people. When they don't have like a sense of like joking at their own expense, they're usually pretty fucking boring and annoying.
And that's pretty standard with junkies and drug addicts. I think there are a lot of really talented or charismatic junkies and drug addicts, and when they're so deep in their addiction, you really do become a shell of a person. Right.
So, in 2006, Sid Vicious and the other 4 members of the Sex Pistols were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And they refused to attend because what could be more punk than that?
Right.
Another kind of side note to all of this is our old friend Courtney Love. She actually auditioned to play Nancy Spungen.
I know this story. She really wanted to be Nancy. Right. She sent in so many taped auditions that were like, if you need to let me fucking play Nancy, I am Nancy.
And she does kind of have like a similar
look. Really has a similar look to her.
So obviously she didn't get the role. It went to Chloe Webb, but she is in the movie as one of their, like, you know, junkie punk friends. And then she did kind of become like a little bit of a Nancy Spungen in the 90s. Yeah. Another funny story I saw, and I love this because it's so fucking shade. There's like a famous quote from Kurt Cobain at some point where he said about Chloe, like when he met her in Portland for the first time, she looked like Nancy Spungen and I probably could have fucked her that night.
Kurt Cobain said this.
Yeah, Kurt Cobain said this. And then I can't remember the article I was reading, but the person was like, that's revisionist history, because at the time she had like a poor man's Madonna look. Like she wasn't punk at all. She looked like an MTV Madonna.
Yeah.
So like their point is that after the fact, Kurt didn't want people to think he wanted to fuck someone who was basic, I guess.
Oh my God.
So he made it seem like she was always this sort of like Nancy Spungen kind of punk rock mess or whatever.
Right.
So, I mean, that's basically it, the love story of our time. And of course, there's a quote from Sid about love. Who cares about love? Love is for people preparing to die. So it's very Romeo and Juliet, the whole thing.
Very dramatic.
Yeah, it's all fucking, it's
Like-
kind of like people who never grew up out of their high school kind of, angsty.
Right.
And it's probably true because they were very young. He was 21 when he died.
I forget that they were so young.
They were really young. And it's like if you're doing drugs from 17 on, you're probably still
You're stunted.
17. Yeah.
You're very much stunted emotionally.
So that's the story. That's the end.
I really do. Desi and I were having a conversation today about rock stars were DTF, and unfortunately, most of the rock stars were DTF or dead.
Right. Yeah.
We got into an argument today, speaking of punk rock, about another punk rock legend who's my personal favorite punk rock legend, Joe Strummer of The Clash.
Right.
And Desi and I got into an argument about who is the bigger stan of Joe Strummer. And I was like, well, look, these are my credentials. Credentials, the old person's version of saying these are my receipts.
Right. Here's my credentials. I was like, what the fuck?
I was very upset.
Well, the funny thing is, another thing I heard, like, by the way, Johnny Lydon fucking hated the movie Sid and Nancy.
Really?
He thinks it's all bullshit. And he's like, one of the things he said that I wanted to bring up was because of our argument, or I don't even call it an argument. It was like, we're both fighting over who's going to fuck a dead person. Excuse me. He, at some point, was like, the filmmaker didn't even talk to me. He just talked to Joe Strummer, like, and what the fuck? He, like, dissed Joe Strummer. I was like, what? Like, calm the fuck down. Like, as if Joe Strummer was just some, like, fanboy. I was like, yeah. He's like, his band was way more.
His band was way more prolific.
Yeah.
And his lyrics were pretty woke.
Well, and I would say they were far more influential in, like, a real way than the Sex Pistols
Musically, they were influential. Lyrically, they were influential.
And
politically, they were influential.
And fuckable.
And very fuckable. But here's what I was going to say. Sid Vicious is a rock star on DTF. Probably because I fucked several guys that looked exactly like Sid Vicious when I was in high school. That was my type in high school.
I think, honestly, I feel like my first impression of Sid Vicious was seeing Gary Oldman play him. So I was like, I want to fuck the Gary Oldman Sid Vicious.
Here's the thing. Gary Oldman is to me, Gary Oldman is besides my boyfriend, Gary Oldman is the sexiest actor of all time.
He's hot.
He's so hot, especially when he plays Drexel in True Romance.
Literally, the only Gary I will fuck is Gary Oldman.
You're not gonna fuck my dad?
Well, I'll just do that for fun, just to do it. Hey, fuck your dad.
He really is. He's so hot.
He's so hot as Sid Vicious, too.
Oh, my God.
The other thing I love seeing, too, is, like, people say, like, I love the kind of shade that's always in everything, where they're like, Chloe Webb was great, but Nancy was actually much prettier. I was like, I love that these punks, like, have, like, these, like, little shady, like...
She was an actress playing a role, and I think Chloe Webb is very pretty in real life.
I think she's fine. I mean, come on. But Gary Oldman as Sid Vicious, it's a great performance. You have to see it. If you want to fuck both of those guys, you need to see this movie. Because they're together in one fuckable package.
It's like one of the weirdest things about me that, like, I was such a little punker when I was, like, 15, 16. Right. I was, like, in that little scene. All the guys I fucked looked like Sid Vicious, and I've never seen Sid and Nancy before.
Yeah, you gotta see it.
It's so wild.
It's a good movie, and
I bet I'll like it.
It's relatable.
It's so relatable. It came out in 1986. I know that about it. Me and my dates.
Yeah. But yeah, it's a great performance by Gary Oldman, and he's fucking hot. Like, I even want to fuck him as Sirius Black in Harry Potter.
He's hot in everything.
He's so hot.
With the exception of, what's that movie? Hannibal? That's the only movie he's not hot in.
And even that, he's kind of hot.
Because
that's the only way that character could have been hot is because Gary Oldman
to play him.
Right.
I think
even when his lips got eaten off, right?
He ate his own face off.
He ate his own face off, and it's like...
Or the dog ate his face, but he tore
or the
his
pig,
own face.
Right?
Some
all
animal
confused.
ate his face after he ripped it off.
I'll eat his face off with my pussy.
I think I think if they were gonna make that character hot and he's a deformed person.
Gary Oldman is hotter than Sid Vicious.
I know.
And as Sid Vicious, it's like, thank you.
Right.
This is
they
amazing.
got a really hot person to play me.
And he looks like Sid Vicious, but like the hot version.
Like the Hollywood hot version.
Everybody is like, why do these girls want to fuck? This is like this is less controversial than when I said I would fuck Steve Buscemi over Channing Tatum.
Here's the thing about fucking Steve Buscemi though. Steve Buscemi eats a mean box.
Does he? I look at you as if you have like firsthand proof.
I just know these things. I can tell. I'm like the pussy eating whisperer. I know who can eat box and I know who can't.
That's why I want to fuck Steve Buscemi.
He can eat pussy.
You
and
could just tell.
He eats the whole thing.
Yeah.
He eats
He goes
everything
all up
around
and down.
He does.
He bites the thighs.
He doesn't last long the first time you fuck him, but he gets it together.
He
and he
like,
fucks
it's
you
also
again.
if any juices slide down,
up.
he licks it all up. We think about these things.
We
We're
do.
fucking take this seriously.
And we also learned today that Desi would fuck Bruce Springsteen.
Well, because you said, are there any good rock stars to fuck left?
That are alive.
And I will tell you, I'm not like a huge Bruce Springsteen fan, but he is fucking hot. Like,
Look
look at Bruce Springsteen right now. Does any man look hotter than Bruce
He's
Springsteen
so
at his
hot.
age? Like, I don't even know how it's possible.
He's so fucking hot. Like, my mom has seen Bruce Springsteen in concert like 50 or 60 times probably. I was in my mom's stomach, in her womb, sorry to be technical, in 1985 when she was at a Bruce Springsteen concert. I was like in there rocking out. And I'm not a Bruce Springsteen fan. I think
That was
whatever.
the first time Rachel masturbated.
That was the first time I jerked off, was in the womb, in my mom's womb at a Bruce Springsteen concert in 1985. But he is so, like,
I literally have never seen a hotter man at his age.
He's like 67 or something, and he is fucking stunning. And he aged gracefully, too.
You know he can fuck. You said it on Twitter today when we were, during our argument, about how he takes care of working class pussy. Yeah. And I was literally thinking the same fucking thing, because I was like, you know he eats that working class pussy. Like,
yeah.
You just know he gets fucking down into it.
Right.
I also love him because he left his model wife for his backup singer, who was like way less conventionally pretty though, and I just felt like that was, as if you're gonna cheat, that's the hottest cheat to go down, like in the public's estimation, because it's like he can fuck that backup singer, and you know his model wife was probably like,
well, she probably laid there like a dead piece of sushi,
right? Because she wants to look good and not have a role, or how it works.
But here's the thing about Bruce Springsteen. I was gonna say that too. Is I feel like not only does he fuck the working class pussy, he fucks all the different types of pussy. Like, he's not the woke guy on Twitter who, like, will never fuck a fat chick.
I think I tried to follow him on Twitter one time because I was like, I can fuck him.
I can get him.
I can't remember if he doesn't have a Twitter account or if it's just like a fan thing or whatever. And I was just like, oh, what am I doing? This is worse than the time I tried to fuck D'Angelo on Twitter.
Or Cory Booker. Yeah. Last year, Desi had this mission to fuck Cory Booker. She was like, I just followed Cory on Twitter. I'm going to fuck him, and then I'm going to become the first lady. And then...
You know, I got to make Twitter interesting sometimes. No one else does anything on there. So, well, that took a sidetrack. Yeah. But it was an important one, I think.
I really can't think of any other...
Please reply me all the rock stars that I should be fucking.
We talked about, I think if you are a patron, you would know that we already talked about fucking Robert Plant.
Right.
On our bonus episode last week.
If you liked this little teaser of our sex talk, you should definitely hit up our Patreon for $5, because there's tons of good, juicy stories.
We're about to record something after this for this week's bonus episode. It's going to be nasty as fuck.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's it. Thank you.
Bye.